He looked his mistress in the eye, oblivious to who was standing just behind the cracked kitchen door, and smirked. "Don't worry about her. She's basically a glorified maid I married out of pity." He thought his wife was a penniless nobody. He didn't know the woman scrubbing his floors was the sole heiress to a $9 billion private equity empire. For 5 years, Chloe Sinclair lived a lie that would have suffocated anyone else. To the world, and more importantly, to her husband, Liam Cross. She was just Chloe, a small-town girl from upstate New York who worked part-time at a local bookstore and spent the rest of her days keeping their 2-bedroom apartment in pristine condition. She wore off-the-rack clothes, drove a rusted 2014 Honda Civic, and meticulously clipped coupons to keep their grocery bills under Liam's suffocatingly tight budget. Liam had no idea that Chloe's father was William Sinclair, the ruthless and famously private founder of Sinclair Global Holdings, an equity behemoth that owned half the commercial real estate in Manhattan and held majority stakes in 3 international banks. Chloe had her reasons for the deception. Growing up in the suffocating bubble of extreme wealth, she had watched money rot the souls of everyone around her. She saw her older brother destroyed by a calculated gold digger, and her father's friends marry and divorce like it was a competitive sport. When Chloe met Liam, he was just a junior financial analyst at Whitmore and Chase Banking. He was charming, genuinely funny, and drove a beat-up sedan. He didn't care about designer labels. He cared about her. Or so she thought. To be absolutely sure he loved her for who she was, and not the billions attached to her bloodline, she buried her identity. Her parents, fiercely protective, agreed to the charade. "Give it 5 years," her father had warned. "If he survives the climb without losing his soul, you can tell him." But Liam didn't survive the climb. As the years ticked by, Liam clawed his way up to vice president of wealth management at Whitmore and Chase. And as his paycheck grew, his ego mutated. The sweet, humble man Chloe married vanished, replaced by a status-obsessed, arrogant narcissist who treated his wife not as a partner, but as an unfortunate anchor holding him back from high society. It started with small, cutting remarks. When Chloe would greet him at the door after a long day, he would look at her flour-dusted apron with a sneer. "Do you have to look so domestic all the time?" he'd ask, loosening his $3,000 Tom Ford tie. "The partners' wives are launching charities and hosting galas. You're excited about a sale on detergent. It's embarrassing." Chloe bit her tongue, playing the part. "I'm just trying to save us money, Liam," she'd reply softly. "I make $500,000 a year, Chloe. I don't need you to save money. I need you to look like you belong in my tax bracket," he'd snap, though he actively refused to give her access to his primary accounts, restricting her to a meager monthly allowance. He wanted the aesthetic of a wealthy wife, but treated her like the hired help. Then came Vanessa Palmer. Vanessa was a senior director of acquisitions at Whitmore and Chase. She was striking, ruthless, and wore her ambition like a weapon. She came from old Boston money and made sure everyone knew it. Chloe first met Vanessa at the bank's annual holiday gala. Liam had practically forced Chloe to wear a drab, understated dress he'd picked out himself, ensuring she faded into the background. Throughout the night, Liam paraded Vanessa around the room, introducing her to the executive board with glowing admiration, while leaving Chloe sitting alone at a corner table with a glass of cheap tap water. Chloe wasn't blind. She saw the lingering touches. She smelled the expensive, musky Santal 33 perfume on Liam's collars when she did the laundry. She noticed the late-night emergency client meetings that left Liam returning home at 3 a.m., smelling of expensive gin and hotel soap. But Chloe needed undeniable proof. The Sinclair family did not act on suspicion. They acted on absolute calculated certainty. She endured the emotional abuse, the blatant disrespect, and the financial control, quietly gathering her evidence. She installed a hidden keylogger on their shared home computer. She found the secret checking account Liam had opened to fund weekend trips to Aspen with Vanessa. She compiled the receipts, the hotel bookings, and the late-night text logs. She had enough to ruin him. But the final nail in the coffin, the moment that shifted Chloe from a heartbroken wife to a cold, calculating Sinclair, happened on a rainy Tuesday evening in November. Liam was desperate to make managing director by the end of the fiscal year. To seal the deal, he decided to host an intimate, high-stakes dinner party at their apartment for the bank's regional CEO, Harrison Gable, and a few key executives. Among the invited, naturally, was Vanessa. "I need everything to be perfect," Liam barked at Chloe that morning, tossing a crumpled grocery list onto the kitchen island. "Gable is old school. He appreciates a traditional home. I told him you're an exceptional cook. Don't embarrass me. Make the beef Wellington, and for God's sake, don't speak unless spoken to. These are high-level financial minds. They don't want to hear about your little book club." Chloe looked at the list. He hadn't given her extra money for the expensive cuts of meat or the vintage wine he demanded. "Liam, this is going to cost at least $800. My allowance." "Figure it out," Liam snapped, checking his Rolex. "Dip into your own meager savings if you have to. Consider it an investment in your husband's career. And please, wear the black dress. You look less frumpy in it." Chloe stared at the door as it slammed shut. A cold, terrifying calm washed over her. Figure it out. She smiled a sharp, humorless smile. She pulled out a sleek black encrypted phone from a hidden compartment in the floorboards beneath their bed, a direct line to her father's private office. She transferred $10,000 from her trust to a dummy account and ordered the finest ingredients Manhattan had to offer. If Liam wanted a show, he was going to get a masterpiece. That evening, the apartment smelled of rich truffle, roasted garlic, and expensive wine. Chloe played her part flawlessly. She wore the plain black dress, her hair pulled back into a severe, modest bun. When the guests arrived, Liam greeted them at the door with a booming, artificial laugh, taking their coats and handing them off to Chloe without even looking at her. "Ah, Harrison, welcome, welcome," Liam beamed. "Let me take that. Chloe, put Mr. Gable's coat in the master closet. Make sure it doesn't wrinkle." "Of course," Chloe murmured, her eyes cast downward. Vanessa arrived last, draped in a stunning emerald green gown, holding a bottle of Dom Perignon. "Liam, darling," she purred, kissing him on both cheeks, lingering just a fraction of a second too long. She turned to Chloe and offered a condescending, tight-lipped smile. "Chloe, so sweet of you to play hostess tonight. I would have hired a catering team, but Liam insisted you needed something to keep you busy." "I enjoy taking care of my husband," Chloe replied evenly, taking the champagne. Throughout the dinner, the humiliation was relentless. Liam actively excluded Chloe from the conversation, treating her strictly as a servant. Every time she approached the table to refill water glasses or clear plates, Liam would wave her away dismissively or critique her in front of his boss. "The Wellington is a bit overdone, don't you think, Chloe?" Liam sighed loudly, cutting into the perfectly medium-rare meat. "I apologize, Harrison. She's not used to handling quality ingredients. She grew up eating boxed mac and cheese. The table chuckled awkwardly. Vanessa smirked, taking a slow sip of her wine. It's quite all right, Liam. We can't all be blessed with a refined palate. I think it's charming how hard she tries. Chloe felt a dangerous heat rising in her chest, but she kept her face completely blank. She cleared the plates and retreated to the kitchen to plate the dessert. The door swung shut behind her, but didn't latch completely. A few minutes later, she heard the heavy footsteps of Liam, followed by the familiar click of Vanessa's stilettos. They had stepped into the hallway just outside the kitchen, thinking they were alone while the other guests mingled in the living room. Chloe froze, her hand hovering over a silver tray of crème brûlée. You were a bit harsh on her tonight, weren't you? Vanessa's voice drifted through the crack in the door. She didn't sound sympathetic. She sounded amused. Please. It puts Gable at ease to see I have complete control over my household, Liam scoffed softly. Chloe heard the rustle of clothing, the unmistakable sound of Liam pulling Vanessa close. Besides, she needs to know her place. I'm suffocating in this marriage, V. She's dragging me down with her pathetic small-town mindset. So when are you going to drop the dead weight? Vanessa whispered, her voice husky. I'm tired of sneaking around. I want that ring on my finger. A managing director needs a wife who can stand beside him at charity galas, not someone who smells like bleach and cheap vanilla. Soon, Liam promised, his voice dripping with venom. Once Gable signs off on the promotion next week, the bonus will clear. I've already got my lawyer quietly moving my assets into offshore accounts, so she can't touch a dime of my real money in the divorce. I'll leave her the Honda and a few grand to keep her quiet. She's basically a glorified maid I married out of pity anyway. She'll be too terrified and broke to fight me. You're brilliant, you know that? Vanessa purred. The sound of their lips meeting echoed in the quiet hallway. In the kitchen, Chloe didn't cry. She didn't drop the tray. She didn't burst through the door and scream. Instead, a terrifying, absolute clarity settled over her. The 5-year experiment was officially over. Liam had not only failed, he had proven himself to be a parasitic, cruel coward who thought he could discard her like trash. He thought he held all the cards because he controlled a bank account with a few $100,000. He had no idea he was dealing with a Sinclair. Chloe quietly pulled her sleek black phone from her apron pocket and hit a single speed dial number. It rang once. Chloe, her father's deep, gravelly voice answered. William Sinclair rarely slept. Dad, Chloe said, her voice dropping to an icy, authoritative whisper that Liam had never heard in his life. You were right. The trial period is over. A long pause on the other end. Then the sound of a leather chair creaking. Do you want me to send the lawyers, sweetheart? Or do you want to ruin him yourself? Chloe looked through the crack in the door, watching Liam hand a glass of wine to his mistress, laughing at something she said. Both, Chloe replied, her eyes narrowing. Liam works for Whitmore and Chase. He's expecting a promotion to managing director next week. Whitmore and Chase, William mused. Their board has been begging us for a capital injection for 6 months. They are over-leveraged in commercial real estate. I can buy a controlling stake by Tuesday. Do it, Chloe commanded, the billionaire heiress finally stepping out of the shadows. Buy his bank, Dad. Buy the whole damn thing, and make sure the ink is dry by Friday. Consider it done. What about the husband? Let him have his little dinner party tonight, Chloe said, a dangerous smirk playing on her lips. I'll serve him dessert, but next week I'm taking everything. She hung up the phone, smoothed down her cheap black dress, picked up the silver tray, and pushed open the kitchen door. Liam and Vanessa jumped apart, but Chloe didn't even blink. She walked right past them, her head held high, carrying the dessert into the dining room. "Enjoy the crème brûlée, Liam," she thought. "It's the last meal you'll ever eat in peace." The morning after the dinner party, the apartment was deathly quiet. Liam stood in the kitchen, aggressively knotting his silk tie and sipping his espresso, completely unaware that the countdown to his utter destruction had already begun. He tossed a $50 bill onto the counter. "I have a late dinner with Harrison tonight to finalize the promotion details," Liam said, not bothering to look at Chloe, who was quietly washing the dessert plates. "Buy yourself something nice. Or, buy groceries. Just don't bother waiting up." "I won't," Chloe replied, her voice eerily calm. The moment the front door clicked shut and the deadbolt slid into place, the illusion of the submissive, small-town wife shattered. Chloe dried her hands, walked into the master bedroom, and pulled 3 heavy scuffed suitcases from the back of the closet. She didn't pack the cheap polyester blouses or the drab dresses Liam had forced her to wear. She left the coupon binder on the kitchen island. Instead, she packed only what was truly hers: a few cherished books, her grandmother's locket, and the hidden encrypted laptop. Before leaving, she placed her modest, half-carat, cubic zirconia engagement ring, the one Liam had claimed was real diamonds, perfectly in the center of the kitchen island, right on top of the $50 bill. Beside it, she laid a manila envelope containing heavily drafted divorce papers, expedited by the ruthless attorneys at Kirkland and Ellis, her father's preferred legal bloodhounds. By noon, a sleek black Maybach idled at the curb of their apartment building. A driver in a sharp suit loaded her bags into the trunk. As the car pulled away, navigating through the dense Manhattan traffic toward the ultra-exclusive Billionaire's Row on 57th Street, Chloe opened her laptop. The hostile takeover was already in motion. Whitmore and Chase Banking was bleeding capital. They had heavily over-leveraged themselves in commercial real estate post-pandemic, and their board was terrified of an impending SEC audit. When Sinclair Global Holdings, a private equity titan with notoriously deep pockets, offered to inject $2 billion in liquid capital in exchange for a 51% controlling stake, the Whitmore board didn't just agree. They practically begged for the ink to dry. Over the next 48 hours, the financial landscape of Wall Street shifted quietly, but seismically. NDA agreements were signed. Federal regulators approved the expedited transfer of assets. And Chloe underwent a transformation that was less of a makeover and more of an unearthing. Gone was the messy bun and the flour-dusted apron. In a sprawling penthouse overlooking Central Park, a team of stylists and tailors went to work. Chloe stepped into a bespoke, razor-sharp Alexander McQueen pantsuit in charcoal gray. She slipped on a pair of Christian Louboutin stilettos that cost more than Liam's monthly mortgage. Her hair was blown out into a sleek, imposing style. Looking in the floor-to-ceiling mirror, she didn't see a broken wife. She saw a corporate executioner. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Liam returned home on Wednesday evening, buzzing with the high of his impending promotion. He walked into the kitchen, expecting the smell of a cheap casserole. Instead, the apartment was dark. He flipped on the lights and saw the ring. He laughed, a loud, arrogant bark of genuine amusement. He picked up the divorce papers, skimming the front page before tossing them aside. He pulled out his phone and dialed Vanessa. "You're not going to believe this," Liam chuckled, pouring himself a glass of scotch. The maid finally packed up, left her cheap little ring and some boilerplate divorce papers. I didn't even have to fight her on it. "Darling, that's wonderful news," Vanessa purred through the speaker. "Does she want anything?" She checked the box requesting no alimony. She's probably too terrified to ask for a dime, knowing I'll crush her in court. "I'm telling you, V, the trash took itself out. Now the path is completely clear for Friday. Managing director, a corner office, and you." "I'll wear my best dress," Vanessa promised. "Celebrate tonight, Liam. You've earned it." Liam smiled, taking a slow sip of his scotch, utterly convinced he was the smartest man in New York City. He thought he had outplayed the system. He thought his offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, secretly holding hundreds of thousands in diverted client funds, were safe. He didn't know that Sinclair Global Holdings possessed the most aggressive forensic accounting division in the hemisphere. They hadn't just bought the bank, they had audited its key personnel. And Chloe had handed them the digital keys to Liam's encrypted hard drive. Friday morning arrived with the crisp, cold bite of late November. The 40th floor of the Whitmore and Chase headquarters was a cathedral of glass, steel, and suffocating corporate ego. At 10 a.m., the senior executive board, regional directors, and top-performing vice presidents were summoned to the grand boardroom for what was billed as an emergency structural announcement. Liam strutted into the room wearing a navy blue Brioni suit, his chest puffed out, radiating obnoxious confidence. He caught Vanessa's eye across the mahogany table. She gave him a subtle, sultry wink. Liam took his seat near the head of the table, entirely expecting Harrison Gable to announce his elevation to managing director in front of the entire elite staff. But as Liam looked at Harrison, his smug smile faltered. The regional CEO was sweating profusely. Harrison's hand shook as he shuffled a stack of papers, his face completely drained of color. The usual arrogant swagger of the bank's leadership had evaporated, replaced by a thick, palpable tension. At exactly 10:05 a.m., Harrison cleared his throat, leaning into the microphone. "Good morning, everyone," Harrison stammered, his voice cracking slightly. "I know this meeting was called on incredibly short notice. As of 8 a.m. this morning, following an emergency shareholder vote, Whitmore and Chase has been officially acquired. We are now a subsidiary of Sinclair Global Holdings." A collective gasp echoed through the boardroom. Wall Street veterans exchanged panicked glances. Sinclair Global was notorious for buying distressed assets, liquidating dead weight, and completely gutting middle management. "The transition is effective immediately," Harrison continued, wiping his brow with a silk handkerchief. "And to oversee this restructuring, the founder of Sinclair Global, Mr. William Sinclair, has appointed a new chairwoman of the board to act as the primary liaison. Please welcome her." The heavy double oak doors at the back of the boardroom swung open. Liam clapped politely, ready to charm whoever walked through those doors. He needed to make a good impression on the new boss. He rehearsed his introductory smile. Footsteps echoed against the marble floor, rhythmic, sharp, and commanding. When the new chairwoman stepped into the light of the panoramic windows, Liam's polite applause died instantly. His hands froze mid-air. The blood violently drained from his face, leaving him ashen and hollow. It was Chloe. She walked with a predatory grace, her Alexander McQueen suit tailored to perfection, a $100,000 Cartier Panthère watch gleaming on her wrist. She didn't look like the woman who scrubbed his floors. She looked like a billionaire who owned the building. She walked past the rows of stunned executives, her eyes locked dead onto Liam. The sheer force of her presence sucked the oxygen out of the room. Vanessa, sitting 3 seats down from Liam, dropped her designer pen. It clattered loudly against the mahogany table. Her jaw unhinged as she stared at the woman she had mocked just days prior for smelling like bleach. Chloe reached the head of the table. Harrison Gable immediately stood up and stepped aside, bowing his head in total submission. Chloe didn't even look at him. She placed a thick, leather-bound folder on the table and let the silence stretch for 10 agonizing seconds. "Good morning," Chloe said. Her voice was smooth, cold, and amplified perfectly in the silent room. "My name is Chloe Sinclair. You may know my father, William. For the past 5 years, I have been conducting a deep, boots-on-the-ground assessment of the ethical and financial integrity of Whitmore and Chase's personnel. The results have been disappointing. Liam couldn't breathe. His heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He opened his mouth to speak, to call her name, to formulate a sentence, but his vocal cords were paralyzed by sheer, primal terror. Sinclair. The name echoed in his skull. Chloe Sinclair. Our forensic accounting division spent the last 48 hours auditing the personal and professional accounts of your senior management, Chloe continued, slowly pacing behind the chairs. Sinclair Global does not tolerate liability. We do not tolerate fraud, and we certainly do not tolerate absolute, pathetic mediocrity disguised as ambition. She stopped directly behind Vanessa's chair. Vanessa stiffened, her face pale, staring straight ahead. "Vanessa Palmer," Chloe said, her tone dripping with surgical precision. "Senior Director of Acquisitions. You have billed the firm over $80,000 in personal expenses disguised as client entertainment over the last fiscal year. Furthermore, you are in direct violation of the firm's ethical conduct policies regarding subordinate fraternization." Chloe leaned down, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper right next to Vanessa's ear. "You are terminated, effective immediately. Security is waiting outside to escort you from the premises. Your severance is voided due to breach of contract. Leave." Vanessa scrambled to her feet, tears of humiliation springing to her eyes. She looked to Liam for help, but Liam was paralyzed, staring at Chloe like she was a ghost holding a loaded gun. Vanessa grabbed her purse and practically ran out of the boardroom, the doors slamming shut behind her. Chloe then turned her attention to Liam. She walked slowly to the opposite end of the table, standing directly across from him. "Liam Cross," she stated loudly. "Chloe, please," Liam croaked, his voice cracking into a desperate, high-pitched whimper. "What is this? What are you doing?" "Address me as Ms. Sinclair," Chloe snapped, her eyes flashing with a dangerous, icy fire that silenced him instantly. She opened the leather folder. "Liam Cross, Vice President of Wealth Management. You were expecting a promotion today. Instead, you are going to be facing federal charges." The boardroom erupted into furious whispers, but a sharp look from Chloe silenced them again. "Over the past 3 years," Chloe read, pulling out a stack of banking statements, "you have siphoned precisely $432,500 from dormant client accounts into a private offshore holding company registered in the Cayman Islands. You used encrypted software on your work terminal to alter the ledgers." Liam's chest heaved. That's a lie. You don't have proof. I have the keystroke logs, Liam, Chloe smiled, a terrifying, humorless expression. I've had them for months. You see, when you treat people like invisible maids, you tend to leave your laptop unlocked while you sleep. Liam slumped in his chair, the reality of his total destruction crashing down on him. As the new majority shareholder of this bank, my first act is your immediate termination, Chloe announced, her voice ringing with absolute finality. My second act was freezing your offshore accounts via an injunction filed this morning by Kirkland and Ellis. The funds have been returned to their rightful owners. You have absolutely nothing. Chloe closed the folder with a sharp snap. Oh, and Liam, she added, her voice dropping the corporate formality, reverting for just a second to the woman he thought he had broken. The divorce papers you signed on Wednesday, the ones where you eagerly accepted my request for zero alimony and a clean break? Liam looked up, his eyes bloodshot, tears of panic spilling over his cheeks. Because you signed them without contesting, Chloe whispered, leaning over the table. You completely forfeited your right to my assets. You are broke. You are blacklisted from every financial institution on Wall Street. And the SEC investigators are currently waiting for you in the lobby. Liam fell to his knees right there in the boardroom, begging, sobbing, and clawing at the edge of the mahogany table. But Chloe didn't look back. She simply adjusted the cuffs of her Alexander McQueen suit, turned to Harrison Gable, and said, "Now that the trash has been taken out, let's discuss our quarterly projections." Conclusion: Liam lost everything that day. Stripped of his wealth, his career, and his dignity, he was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for embezzlement, while Vanessa was blacklisted from the corporate world forever. Chloe Sinclair took her rightful place at the head of her family's empire, proving that the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. Did you love this story of ultimate corporate revenge? Hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good plot twist, and subscribe for more real-life drama and epic comeback stories.